I don't think I've ever started a video by telling you the price of a watch first. Today I'm going to make an exception. 2,450 Australian dollars. That's 1,600 USD. And for a brand like Hanhart, which has been established in 1882, I think this is an excellent attempt at a dive watch with 300 meters of water resistance, a helium escape valve, matte ceramic bezels, excellent lume, and a beautiful profile that sits nicely on the wrist. I think these watches require a little bit closer scrutiny. So without further ado, let's flip the camera and let's dive in. Now, I've handled enough watches over the years to know what a good quality watch feels like, and that's exactly what I've got in my hands here. And honestly, I don't think Hanhart makes a bad watch. And for those in the know, Hanhart is predominantly known for their pilot chronographs, with their famous red pushers, their little red accent at the top of their bezels, and these things here seem to be carrying the same DNA, with a red accent at the top of the bezel, a nice red tip on that seconds hand. They seem to have Hanhart's DNA all over them. Now, because Hanhart has predominantly been specialising on pilot chronographs over the years, there's a gap. Divers watches, a different genre. These watches, as a first attempt, coming in at an affordable price, and when I say affordable, 2,450 Australian dollars, you compare that to an Omega Seamaster Professional 300, 10 grand, 11 grand Australian, these are a bargain. Yeah, even a Rolex Submariner, they come in at 16 grand Australian dollars. These are a bargain because the pedigree on this brand, going all the way back to 1800s, you know you're going to get a decent watch. Now, it's not a perfect watch, and I don't think I've ever handled a perfect watch. There is none in existence, and I will tell you what I think could offer room for improvement in these, but overall I think these are a lovely new addition to their lineup, especially this blue one, a matte ceramic blue bezel that marries up beautiful with our dial that fades from top to bottom from blue to almost black. It basically simulates the depth of the ocean. As you go deeper, it gets darker and you lose light. That's a cool touch. Now, looking at the physical dimensions of these watches, I measure a case diameter of 41.8 and a case height of 12.6. That lug to lug is 49 and a lug width of 20. The crown is a 6.8mm signed screw-down crown. The watches offer 300 meters of water resistance as well as a helium escape valve, and the total weight on the supplied rubber strap, I measure exactly 129 grams. Now, although Defined Watches was kind enough to send these watches on loan for review, I must say I've really bonded with this blue one. The black one's nice, it's got a black bezel, blue dial, not really a big fan of the bracelet, and I will share more about that in the course of this review. But turning my attention back to this blue watch, on the wrist it's been sublime. That rubber strap is integrated, it follows the profile of the actual case perfectly, and with a lovely taper down to about 16mm at the clasp, I've really enjoyed the experience on the wrist. In fact, looking at that clasp, you can see a nice little red accent at the bottom. Again, it's all about the details when it comes to brand recognition and identity, and I think here they've done well. Now, turning the watch over, you'll notice there's a solid case back. It features an underwater scene, and although it's nice and I see the direction the brand is going in by identifying as a diver's watch, personally I would have preferred maybe Hanhart's logo at the back, but that's just me. And hiding behind that case back is the Soprod SOP P024 automatic. It's actually a top version that's regulated from 0 to +8 seconds as an average across 6 positions. And this particular blue one has been running healthily at +3 seconds per day, so in that regard, well done. Now, when it comes to looks, we're attracted to watches usually by what we see, and looking at these watches, looking at the face of the watch straight down, I really love this blue one. The combination of a matte blue ceramic bezel accompanied with that gradient blue to almost black dial. The contrast is beautiful, the visuals seem to draw your eye in, and as far as legibility goes, I've had zero complaints. Both watches, in fact, have been so easy to read at a glance, because if you notice that hour hand, there's a separator in it that cuts that lume in half to distinguish that hour hand from the minute hand. So again, I think that's a nice touch, and subconsciously looking at the watch, it's an easy read. And whilst we're on that lume, the watch offers Superluminova C1 GLX2. And on initial impressions, when turning the lights down, it's very bright, extremely legible, very good, so I'm impressed. Another nice detail that I love about this watch is that crystal. It has the slightest double dome sapphire with anti-reflective coating on the underside. I think it's doing a fantastic job. The clarity on that dial, handset and markers has been absolutely superb, so again in that department top marks. And even under lume, looking at that hour hand, you can see the separator very easily distinguishes the hour hand from that minute hand. So kudos to Hanhart because the legibility whether day or night has been done very well on this watch. Now if I turn my attention to that bezel, it's a 60 click unidirectional bezel. In other words, it goes in one direction. The action's very good. It seems to slot into place beautifully, just the right amount of backplay that a diver's watch requires, and it lines up absolutely perfectly. Now one thing I've been wanting to mention on the channel for a while regarding backplay on bezels, because I said on this one there's just enough backplay. Well, bezels do need a little bit of backplay because being a proper diver's watch, if you go into the ocean and get salt water and sand and grit into that bezel, if there's no backplay, in other words, if there's no tolerance to allow for that grit to come out of that bezel, you'll find that the bezel might seize up. And that's why divers' bezels have backplay, just that little bit, enough to allow that to be cleaned out. When you wash this thing out, you want to be able to get all that grit out. You want to be able to get salt that's dried up under that bezel. You don't want it to seize. So if a bezel is too fine, it's not really ideal for an ocean environment. Just putting it out there because that's been an area of contention amongst many enthusiasts over the years. A lot of people say it's got to be perfect. Well, no, because on a functional standpoint, you need to have a little bit of backplay so that it functions properly. Now before I get onto any room for improvements, a couple of things that I really did like about this watch. Its fit, its finish, the crown, the way it screws down, it's buttery smooth, its action. There's no ghost position, even though it's a SOP rod, there are no ghost positions on both of these watches, which is great. The height at 12.6 for a 300 meter diver with a helium escape valve I think is a very nice achievement on the wrist. And even that rubber strap, if you actually take the rubber strap off, you'll notice at the end of it, there's actually a stainless steel section rather than your normal silicone. And that just gives it more strength to not allow the spring bars to be pulled out under heavy load. Now some might say it's over-engineered, but I like over-engineered stuff. I think it's safer on the wrist. It makes you feel more comfortable and more content with your watch. And speaking of over-engineering, even that clasp, if you look at the pins that attach to the actual rubber tongue, there's two of them. Normally you'd get one. With this they've offered two. It offers a little bit more security, which again I like, but at the detriment of length of strap. In other words, when you get to the end of this strap, you're limited because you're going to take up both holes with those pins. So ideally, if Hanhart can offer maybe a slightly longer tongue for bigger wrists, that would be a problem solver in that department. Now all that said, what are my gripes or room for improvement of this watch? And first and foremost for me, that bracelet. I think the bracelet, well mainly the clasp, is not up to scratch. Because what's offered here is a pressed clasp with 3 micro adjustable holes and a diver's extension. Now I do know that Hanhart does have a toolless on the fly adjustable clasp on their watches, and it would have been great if they included it in this. That's it. So Hanhart, if you're watching this video, that's something that I think would have been nice, just that little bit extra to sweeten the deal with the bracelet. But as it stands for me personally, the rubber strap's a killer. The rubber strap is fantastic. I think the blue, the tonality, the strap, the comfort, it's gorgeous. Second gripe for me is that lume. I think the lume is fantastic. On initial impressions, the handset, the markers, even the actual bezel is very good, but that bezel might need 1 or 2 extra layers of superluminova. It lasts, but not as long as the rest of the deep markers and handset. But again, I'm being critical here because all things considered, I think this is doing a great job. And lastly for me, if you turn the watch over looking at that case back, you'll notice it's held down by screws. Personally, I don't mind that. Some people might complain saying, oh, it should have been a screw down case back. But for me personally, I beg to differ because having a case back with screws all around it, the deeper you go into the ocean, the higher the pressure, the tighter it actually holds the case back onto the case. Having a case back like this also makes the watch thinner rather than a screw down, which might be a little bit bulky. So I think they've done well. I think they've chosen really well in that department, keeping the ergonomics nice and slender, whilst at the same time still offering 300 meters of water resistance alongside that helium escape valve for saturation diving. So what I've got in my hands, I think they're not perfect watches, but Hanhart's done a really smart move by starting in the diving watch category. They've already been established for so many years in pilots' chronographs, testing the waters in the new category, divers' watches in this case, pun intended, developing a really well-made watch at an affordable price, all things considered, from a very well-established brand. I think Hanhart has done really well. Lastly, I want to say a huge thank you to Defined Watches for sending these watches down. Sadly, I have to send them both back. It's been great, especially this blue one. It's been a real delight on the wrist. In looks, in feel, in functionality. I have nothing but high praise at this price point, because I've handled a lot of watches that have been more expensive than this that have had problems that these Hanharts seem to have solved. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed my take on this brand new Hanhart Aquasphere Ocean Fade. I think they're tastefully done, and honestly I can't wait to see a version 2 or version 3 of these. If this is one of Hanhart's first attempt at a proper dive watch, I think it can only get better from here. So be well, be safe, continue to enjoy this hobby, and remember, do all your research before spending any money so that you make sure that you buy what you want. And we'll see you in the next one.